He stirred something into my coffee. He smiled as I drank it, and she watched without blinking. People say betrayal hits like a blade, but they're wrong. It hits like silence, heavy, paralyzing, and long. And that Sunday morning, the silence in my kitchen was thick enough to drown in. My name is Harold Granger. I'm 67 years old, and up until recently, I owned 5 restaurants in South Carolina, ran my books by hand, and woke up every day before the sun just to walk through the morning chill with a hot mug in hand. That was before I heard my own son plot my death. It started simple, like betrayal always does. I'd been feeling off. Dizzy spells, blurred vision. Thought maybe it was the blood pressure pills or just age catching up with me like it always threatens to. But then Savannah started brewing my coffee herself. Said I needed to rest more. She smiled sweetly when she said it, too sweet. And Ethan, my only son, he started showing up more often than usual, acting helpful, too helpful, offering to take meetings with investors, talking about succession planning. I should have seen it sooner, but when it's your own blood, you give them 1,000 chances before the first doubt creeps in. The house was too quiet that day. I'd just come in from the back garden, dirt still under my fingernails from pruning Ellen's old roses, the only thing I'd kept from my first marriage. I was about to head up to shower when I heard the sliding glass door crack open. I shouldn't have heard it, but I did. Once he's gone, Ethan whispered, "We can do this properly." I froze behind the hallway arch Savannah's voice, low, amused. "You think he suspects anything? He's old, Save. He's slipping. He forgets names, leaves the stove on. Nobody will question it." A pause, then her laugh. Not breathy, expensive kind of laugh women use when they think they've already won. Make it look natural. No drama. Just sleep and silence. It felt like a cold wind slammed through me. Sleep and silence. My legs carried me backward without thought, into my office, where I sat down like gravity had doubled. They were trying to kill me, my own son, and the woman I married just 2 years ago. I should have stormed in, thrown something, screamed. But instead, I sat there numb, like someone had turned the world down to mute. The next day, Savannah handed me coffee again. Her smile was soft, but her eyes didn't blink. "Drink it while it's hot, honey," she said. And I did. I drank it all, every drop, because now I needed them to believe I hadn't heard a thing. If they thought I suspected, they'd try something faster, cruder. But if I let them think I was still the slipping old man, they'd get comfortable. And that's when mistakes happen. That afternoon, Ethan came into my study with a folder tucked under his arm. I was staring out the window, pretending to nap. "Dad," he said, and the mem, "I've been thinking, maybe we should move some of the business assets around. Consolidate the Granger's grill accounts. Make tax season easier." I turned slowly, like I'd just woken up from a fog. "You know what you're doing?" He grinned. "Of course." I looked him dead in the eye. "Then do whatever you think is best." His eyebrows raised just a hair. Not surprise. Suspicion. But it passed. "All right, Dad. I'll take care of it." He left with that same confident stride I'd seen in the courtroom when he passed the bar. The stride of a man who thought the game was already over. But he didn't know the board was mine. Later that night, I stared at the old wedding photo on the mantel. Me and Savannah, smiling on that beach in Hilton Head. She wore a seafoam green dress. Said she didn't believe in white because this wasn't her first time. I didn't care. God help me, I believed her when she said she loved me. But now I looked at that photo and saw a stranger smiling back. Someone rehearsed. Someone hunting. I turned on my computer. Searched for one name. Peter McBride. Private investigator. Old Marine buddy. Owed me a favor from 1983 when we got caught with poker chips where contraband was supposed to be. He always said I saved his career. Now I needed him to help me save my life. Sent him a message, need eyes on my wife. Possible poisoning. Possible affair. Discreet. 15 minutes later, he replied, "I'll be there tomorrow." Lock the liquor cabinet. I smiled for the first time in days. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in the dark, breathing slow, listening to the grandfather clock Ellen bought me tick its steady rhythm. 3 lives ticking toward a confrontation. Mine, my son's, and my wife's. But they didn't know yet I wasn't planning to go quietly. By the time Peter McBride pulled into my driveway, I was already dressed and sitting on the porch swing, a cane in my hand I didn't need and a fleece blanket over my knees I didn't want. "You look like hell," he said, stepping out of his truck with a brown duffel bag slung over his shoulder. "Good," I said. "Let's keep it that way." Peter was never much for small talk. 2 tours in Iraq had burned that out of him. He nodded once, glanced toward the house. "She home?" "She's inside." "Making me oatmeal," I said, letting the bitterness slip into my voice. "She thinks I need soft food now." Peter gave a sharp exhale through his nose. "You're playing the long game?" "No," I said. "I'm playing for my life." He set up the hidden cameras in less than 2 hours. One in the kitchen above the stove, angled at the counter where she prepared my meals. Another in the hallway near my study. The third was discreetly tucked inside the antique clock in the living room. It gave a full view of the couch where Ethan liked to lounge like he owned the place. I watched from the hallway while Peter tested each feed on his laptop. "You sure you want to see this?" he asked, eyes still on the screen. "I already heard enough," I said. "Now I want to see it. And record it." Peter didn't argue. We synced everything to a secure server. The kind that doesn't just disappear when someone forgets a password. Every second captured. Every movement logged. Every smile dissected. I was no longer a father or husband in that house. I was surveillance. That night at dinner, Savannah served roast chicken with lemon slices. She cut it carefully, brought me a plate herself, poured me a glass of wine, said it would help me sleep better. I smiled like a grateful fool, took one bite, chewed, swallowed, then looked at her with glassy eyes. "Reminds me of the last meal Ellen ever cooked," I said. She blinked. "Oh, yeah," I said, sipping the wine. Except Ellen didn't lace hers with sleeping pills. Her hand froze midair. "What?" I shook my head and smiled again, soft and slow. "Just joking, sweetheart." Her hand relaxed, but her eyes didn't. Behind me, in the antique clock, the camera caught everything: the twitch of her mouth, the shift in her shoulders, the calculation in her gaze. 2 days later, Peter showed me the footage. There it was. Savannah in the kitchen at 3:17 a.m., pulling a small white bottle from the inside lining of her purse, unscrewing it, tipping something into the sugar jar. She didn't hesitate, didn't look nervous, just business. And that told me everything I needed to know. She wasn't scared of me. She thought I was already gone. That night, I switched the sugar jar with a duplicate I'd prepared, plain sugar, nothing else. The original one went into a sealed Ziploc and straight to Peter, who took it to a contact of his at a private lab outside Greenville. Results would take 3 days. In the meantime, I let her keep serving me coffee, and I kept sipping it, smiling, blinking slowly, letting my hand shake just enough to look real, letting her believe it was working. Ethan came by the next morning, no warning, no knock, just strolled through the door with that smug confidence I used to admire when he was 12. Now it made my skin crawl. "Morning, old man," he said, clapping me on the back too hard. "Still kickin', huh?" "Barely," I said, with a dry chuckle. "Your stepmother's been feeding me like I'm already in hospice." He laughed. "Speaking of," I added, "I've been thinking. Maybe it's time you start taking over more of the business." That got his attention. He sat down on the couch across from me, legs crossed, arms wide. "I'm listening." I leaned forward, pretending it took effort. "You always said I was too involved, too controlling. Maybe it's time you showed me how it's really done." His eyes narrowed. "You serious?" "Dead serious." He didn't even try to hide the smirk. And right then, I saw the boy I'd raised, ambitious, clever, sharp, replaced by a man twisted by greed and something darker. A man who wanted what I'd built, not because he respected it, but because he thought he deserved it. He didn't ask questions. He just nodded, said he'd start reviewing operations. That was fine. Let him sniff around. I'd already changed all the passwords. I'd already met with my lawyer. And I'd already moved the business accounts to a new bank under a new holding company, one with a beneficiary clause that named neither Savannah nor Ethan. But they didn't know that. Not yet. They thought they were winning. And I needed them to. That evening, I walked into the garage and stared at the old wooden table I'd built with my father's hands, stained with time, dented with memory. And I remembered something Ethan once said when he was 16, after losing a school debate. If you let them think you're losing, they stop defending. Well, son, I'm giving you exactly what you wanted. The illusion of victory. Just long enough to serve you your own defeat. The envelope came on a Thursday morning. Plain, unmarked. Just a return address from a lab outside Greenville and my name typed in block letters. Peter handed it to me in the driveway, his face unreadable. Open it inside, he said. You'll want to sit. I didn't sit. I stood in my kitchen, the same place Savannah had smiled while pouring me cup after cup of sweetened coffee, and I opened it. Analysis result, positive. Substance identified, zolpidem tartrate. Sleeping aid, prescription only. High doses can cause confusion, memory loss, and, in elderly patients, respiratory depression. I kept reading. Administered dosage, approximately 20 milligrams per serving. Enough to make me seem like a stumbling, forgetful old man. 2 weeks of that, and they could have argued I was unfit to manage my own affairs. That wasn't just poisoning. That was slow erasure. That was rewriting who I was, turning me from man to shell. And I'd let them, because now I had it on paper. I called my attorney, not the firm Ethan had used for years, but a quiet one-man office downtown where the lawyer still used a fountain pen and believed in handshakes. His name was Victor Barlow, and he owed me nothing. I want to draft a letter, I said. To whom? My wife. Victor looked up. Are you filing for divorce? Not yet, I said. This is a warning shot. He leaned back. Let's make it a good one. It took him an hour to write what I couldn't say out loud. That I knew. That I had proof. That if she didn't leave my house by Sunday evening quietly, permanently, with no threats, no drama, the file would go straight to the police, to her employer, and to every media outlet that had ever covered the Granger legacy. No fight. No negotiation. Just leave. And if she didn't, then the gloves would come off. I slid the envelope into Savannah's purse myself. She was in the garden, pretending to trim the roses I'd planted with Ellen. I watched her from the window, noting the way she avoided the thorns. Of course she did. That night, she didn't serve me coffee. That told me everything. She'd seen the letter. But she didn't leave. Not yet. She was calculating. Maybe she thought she could talk her way out of it. Maybe she was waiting for Ethan to handle it. Fine. Let them scheme together. Because I wasn't done. The next move was the business. Over the years, I'd built everything under the Granger name. Granger's Grill, Granger Catering, Granger Market Supply. Each legally connected to one holding company, Granger Legacy Corporation. Ethan had been COO, yes, but never a partner. And when I'd noticed his growing arrogance a year ago, I'd quietly restructured the company. Now, with Victor's help, I initiated a full audit. Frozen accounts. Locked financial transfers. Every password changed. Every login re-authenticated with two-step verification only I could access. By Friday, Ethan called me twice. I didn't answer. On the third call, I picked up. Dad, he said, all casual. Having trouble getting into the system. You changed the software again. Something like that. Okay, no problem. Just send me the new credentials when you get a chance. I didn't answer right away. Let the pause grow heavy. Dad, he asked. I thought you said I was slipping, son. How can you trust an old man with access to sensitive data? He went quiet. I mean, I added, voice low, steady, if I can't remember names or stove burners, how can I be expected to handle million-dollar accounts? Dad, that's not what let me save you the trouble. The answer is no. You're off everything. You can't do that. I just did. Then I hung up. Saturday morning, Peter pulled into the driveway again. This time he had something new. Security footage from that steakhouse downtown, he said. The one Savannah said she'd never been to without you. He handed me a tablet. Pressed play. There she was. Tuesday night. At the bar. Ethan next to her, their heads close. Her hand on his knee. His fingers tucked under her hair. I didn't flinch. Didn't even blink. That was old news. But the timestamp was key, because at 7:36 p.m., while Savannah was sipping wine with my son in that steakhouse, she texted me, staying late at the shelter. We had a surprise donation. Love you. So she lied with ease. Not for survival. For sport. That evening, I printed 2 more copies of the lab report. One went into my safe. The other into Victor's hands with a simple note, only release if something happens to me. I wasn't being paranoid. I was being prepared. And when I checked the antique clock footage that night, I saw Savannah on the phone. Her voice low, frantic. I don't know what he knows. But he's not acting normal. He's too calm. Pause. No, Ethan. I'm not going to try again. Not unless we're sure. Another pause. Then something that made my hands curl into fists. Maybe we just speed things up. He's not as sharp as he thinks. They were planning something again. But this time, they weren't the only ones watching. Because the hunter had turned around. And I was no longer pretending to be prey. Sunday afternoon was quiet. Too quiet. Savannah hadn't spoken to me all day. She floated through the house like a ghost, cooking nothing, cleaning nothing, answering questions with one-word phrases and fake smiles. But I could see it in her eyes. She was unraveling, because the plan she thought was foolproof was now bleeding from every side. And Ethan? He hadn't shown his face since our last call. He knew better than to walk into my house after that. Good. Let him stew. Let them both feel what it's like when the power shifts. Let them see how cold the world gets when the man they tried to erase decides to wake up. At 4 p.m., I walked into the living room with a folder in one hand and the house deed in the other. Savannah was on the couch, legs curled under her like she belonged there. She didn't look up until I spoke. I need you to leave. She blinked. Excuse me. I sat across from her, slow and deliberate. You heard me. A pause. Then that laugh again, the soft, mocking one she used when she thought I was bluffing. You can't just throw me out. I'm your wife. I laid the lab report on the coffee table, neatly aligned with the edge of the wood. She stared at the heading, toxicological results, salpetum, and her face drained like water down a sink. Don't, I said. Please don't insult both of us. Silence. Then her mouth twitched into something cruel. You don't have proof it was me. I smiled. I don't need it. You'll leave willingly, or I'll go to the sheriff tomorrow morning. You'd ruin your reputation over this? I leaned forward. You were willing to end my life over this. That shut her up. I dropped the deed next to the report. You'll find your name nowhere on this. Not now. Not ever. You leave today and you leave clean. No police. No papers. No scandal. But if you so much as raise your voice or call Ethan, everything goes public. She stared at the folder like it was a bomb. Because it was. She stood slowly. No words. No theatrics. Just something in her eyes, pure, burning hate. But hate doesn't scare me. I've stared down men who owed me 6 figures and smiled. I've fired people with families and walked away. You don't run 5 businesses without learning how to eat guilt for breakfast. She packed in 20 minutes. Didn't say goodbye. Didn't slam a door. But the way she looked back before stepping into that Uber, I knew it wouldn't be the last time I saw her. And I was ready for that too. Monday morning, 9:30 a.m. My lawyer, Victor, sat beside me at Granger Legacy Corp headquarters, a simple brick building with no signage and a conference room colder than a morgue. Ethan walked in 5 minutes late, wearing a designer blazer and fake confidence. He saw me and smirked like this was just a family misunderstanding. Then he saw Victor. And the folder. And his smirk cracked. Good morning, Ethan, Victor said, pleasant but firm. Ethan didn't sit. What's going on? I motioned to the chair across from me. Sit. I'm not sit. He did. Victor opened the folder. Mr. Granger has revoked your access to all corporate accounts, properties, and documents. Effective last Friday. You were never listed as a partner or shareholder, merely an employee. That employment has now been terminated. Ethan blinked. What the hell are you talking about? Victor didn't flinch. Furthermore, due to your unauthorized access attempts, we've filed a digital security breach report. Nothing criminal yet, but if it escalates, we have documentation. You're bluffing. No, I said, leaning forward. I was bluffing 2 weeks ago. Now I'm just cleaning house. He looked at me like he didn't recognize the man in front of him. Good. That was the point. Dad, he tried again. We're family. You tried to poison that word, I said. You and her both. He froze. Bingo. You knew, I said softly. You knew what she was doing. You didn't stop her. You didn't warn me. You stood by and watched. That's not proof. No, I said. That's legacy. You stood by and let someone try to erase me. I turned to Victor. Send the documents. He nodded and slid a stack across the table. Ethan didn't touch them. Just stared at the table, mouth tight, hands curled into fists. You think this is over, he said. No, I said. This is just the start. You took something from me. Not money. Not property. I stood slowly. You took my name and dragged it through your filth. So now I'm taking it back. Letter by letter. That night, I poured myself a glass of scotch, something I hadn't done in years, and sat out on the porch where this whole thing had begun. Peter called. She left town, he said. Savannah. Took a flight to Tampa this afternoon. Alone, far as we can tell. But she's not done. I saw her texting someone in the terminal. Ethan? Probably. I took a long sip. Let them come, I said. Let them try again. Because now? I wasn't playing defense anymore. I was building something else. Something final. Reputation is a currency. Sometimes more valuable than dollars. Harder to earn. Easier to lose. And my son? He was about to learn how fast it could vanish. Because money could be rebuilt. But a name? Once stained, it never shines the same. Wednesday morning, I sent out a simple email. 1 paragraph. 48 recipients. Vendors. Business partners. Local reporters. Members of the Chamber of Commerce. Church elders. Former employees who still carried my last name like a badge. Subject line. Regarding recent changes at Granger Legacy Corp. due to internal misconduct and violations of ethical conduct, Ethan Granger is no longer affiliated with any Granger-owned property, investment, or entity. Any representation made by him is unauthorized and will be prosecuted. For direct inquiries, contact my office. Harold Granger, founder and CEO, no drama. No accusations. Just the quiet precision of a man who'd run payroll every Friday for 30 years and never missed a signature. Within an hour, the replies started rolling in. What happened? We always knew something was off about him. Savannah too? Wow. By noon, one of the local business blogs had picked it up. Granger Legacy Shakeup. Founder retakes control amid allegations of internal sabotage. They didn't name names, but everyone knew. Thursday afternoon, I visited the bank. The branch manager, Linda Sharp, had been working there since the Clinton years. She smiled when she saw me, one of the few smiles lately that still felt real. I assume this isn't a social call, she said. No, Linda. It's surgical. We sat in her glass office while I pulled out the folder. My son and his accomplice attempted to access and redirect funds. Here's the security report, the audit, and the court-prepared cease and desist. Her smile faded. You want to freeze everything under his name? No, I said. I want to cut it. Linda reviewed the papers. Her brow furrowed. This is serious, Harold. If we take these steps, he won't even be able to open a checking account without you knowing. That's the point. She nodded. Let me get the forms. While she was gone, I looked out the window at the parking lot, watched a father lifting his daughter out of a car seat, her little arms wrapped around his neck. She giggled. He smiled like he had everything in the world. I used to be that man, until my son decided he wanted my world for himself. By Friday morning, Ethan's phone was lit up with rejections. A client dropped him, then 2 more. Then a commercial lender revoked a pending loan he'd applied for on behalf of the company, a loan he no longer had the authority to touch. Savannah tried to reach out. 3 missed calls. 2 texts. We need to talk. I didn't sign up for this. You can't just abandon me. I blocked her number. She didn't sign up for this? No, darling. You signed up for poisoning a man in his own home, for wrapping yourself in silk and secrets while I drank sleeping agents and smiled. You signed up for easy money. You just didn't read the fine print. I was never the fool you thought I was. That weekend, I was invited to speak at the Callahan Business Hall annual luncheon. I almost declined, but then I saw the guest list. Ethan was scheduled to give a speech on succession planning in family business. Oh, the irony. So I said yes. I rewrote the speech the night before. And when Saturday rolled around, I stepped onto that stage to the polite applause of 50 well-dressed people who had no idea they were about to witness a reckoning. I didn't bring slides. I didn't need them. I was asked to talk about legacy, I said, scanning the room. But legacy means nothing if you don't protect it. People shifted in their seats. I built something over 30 years. With sweat, with sacrifice, with silence. And I almost lost it, not to strangers, but to people who smiled at my table and applauded at my back. A pause. A beat. 1,000 pin-drop seconds. In recent weeks, I was poisoned, betrayed, and nearly erased by my own blood. Gasps. I saw the head of the chamber glance toward the back of the room. I saw whispers form in ripples. I let them soak in the weight. But legacy isn't what you leave behind when you die. It's what you protect while you're still breathing. I ended the speech without flourish. Just a nod. And I walked out as the silence roared behind me. Back in my truck, I sat in the parking lot for a long while. Phone buzzed. It was Peter. You watching the headlines? He asked. Not yet. Ethan's in trouble. A former investor just leaked emails. Savannah was forwarding confidential financials to a third party in Florida. Could be federal. I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. But I did feel something settle in my chest. Not joy. Just gravity. Like the weight of a long war finally coming to rest. They tried to take my name. I took back my future. And now? Now I was building something they could never touch again. It was raining when Ethan showed up at my door. Not the soft, polite kind of rain, no. It came down in sheets, slamming the porch roof like fists, drowning the sound of tires and thoughts. But even through that downpour, I could see it in his eyes, desperation. He was soaked to the bone. Hair plastered, shirt half untucked, phone in hand like it was the only lifeline he had left. I didn't open the screen door. I waited. Dad, he said, voice cracking. Please. I studied him. Not the man. The performance. Tears. Real, probably. Pain? Sure. But regret? I wasn't buying it. Still, I stepped aside. Dry off, I said. Not on the rug. We sat at the kitchen table, the one Savannah used to lace my coffee on, and for a moment, the silence was thick enough to chew. I messed up, he finally said. I didn't respond. He looked older now. Not in years, in damage. Like someone had taken the scaffolding out from under him, and now all the shiny veneers were starting to crack. Everything's falling apart, he muttered. They dropped me from the commercial real estate board. I got 2 lawsuits incoming. Savannah's in Tampa hiding behind her sister's lawyer. I kept staring. And I know I don't deserve anything from you. I know that. I waited. But I need help. There it was. The truth under the tears. Not love. Not forgiveness. Just the same Ethan as before, wrapped in softer packaging. I took a sip of my coffee. Plain. Bitter. Black. You drugged me, I said quietly. His eyes flicked away. You tried to forge my signature. He didn't argue. You watched as Savannah chipped away at me like I was a broken wall, and you helped. I was scared, he said. She said we'd lose everything if we didn't act fast. She convinced me you were losing it. You didn't even ask if I was okay. That shut him up. I wasn't slipping, I said, voice low. I was watching. He folded his hands like he was about to pray. I don't want money, he said. Not anymore. I don't want to disappear. I looked at him for a long time, and then I nodded. All right. His head snapped up. What? You don't want to disappear? Fine. You'll work. Work. I'm reopening the warehouse location in East Rainsboro. Needs a floor manager. That's a storage site. Exactly. Moldy walls. Leaky roof. 15-hour days. You'll scrub, pack, stack, and inventory until your back gives out. He stared at me. I've got a cot in the back room, I added. You'll sleep there. Eat there. Work 6 days a week. You'll report to Manuel. He's 20 years younger, but 10 times the man. You're serious. You wanted to not disappear, I said. This is how. He took the offer. Of course he did. Pride is expensive when you're broke. I signed the paperwork that night, adding him to payroll as a minimum wage contractor. No benefits, no title, no access. And just before sending it off to HR, I added one more line. This employee will not be granted access to financial systems, accounts, or sensitive corporate data under any circumstances. Then I slept for the first time in weeks. The following Monday, I drove out to East Rainsboro. The warehouse stood like a rusted monument to the 1980s, red brick, chain-link fence, and a parking lot that had more weeds than cars. Ethan was there, dressed in a gray hoodie and steel-toed boots, pushing pallets. He looked up when he saw me, didn't smile. Good. Manuel approached me as I stepped inside. He's doing the work, he said. No complaints. But what? He asked about spare keys to the storage room. Of course he did. Always looking for a back door. I thanked Manuel and told him not to worry, because this time I was ready. Back in my truck, I pulled up the draft email. An anonymous message to a certain federal agent in Charleston. Attached, copies of the financial statements Savannah had sent to a private lender using forged authorization. I'd been holding it for a while, waiting, watching. Now that Ethan was close, I could see what he was really doing. Not rebuilding trust, not atoning, just regrouping, plotting the next move. So I pressed send and leaned back as the rain began to fall again. Harder now, like the sky was trying to wash the last of them off my life. But some stains don't wash. Some stains you carve out, with patience and fire. Tuesday, 11:38 a.m. call came from a blocked number. This Agent Price from the U.S. Attorney's Office. We received an anonymous tip regarding unauthorized financial disclosures from your corporation. We'd like to meet. I knew they'd call. That's why I signed the email with invisible ink. Not literally, digitally. Metadata markers that led nowhere. No trail, no name. But just enough truth in the files to start a fire. Of course, I said. I've been expecting you. They met me the next day, 2 agents, sharp suits, neutral expressions. I offered black coffee and the hard truth. The emails between Savannah and the lender in Florida. The forged documents tied to Ethan's login credentials. The account access logs from before I froze everything. And the kicker, the security camera footage showing Savannah in my home, pulling the vial from her purse and pouring white powder into my sugar jar. They took it all. Quietly. Professionally. This may lead to a grand jury, one of them said. Do you understand what that means? I understand this, I replied. If my name goes on anything again, I want it to be under victim, not fool. They nodded and left. By Friday, rumors were flying. Someone saw Savannah arguing with a lawyer outside a strip mall in Clearwater. Someone else swore Ethan had gotten a call from someone in D.C. and went pale as chalk. But none of that mattered. Not yet, because I needed one more thing. His voice. So I drove to East Rainsboro again. Ethan was hauling crates with a new temp hire. He looked thinner, greasier, like stress had begun eating away at the muscle he'd built out of arrogance. Walk with me, I said. He followed without hesitation. We stepped into the old inventory office, windowless, quiet, forgotten. I slid my phone into my breast pocket and tapped record. I'm giving you a chance, I said. 1. He blinked. For what? Tell me the truth. About the loan. About Savannah. About what you were really trying to do to me. He looked away. You've already lost everything, I said. What's left to lie about? A beat. 2. Then. He sighed. I didn't think you'd make it that far, he muttered. She said you'd get sleepy. Not sick. I didn't flinch. She said if we could get you to sign the papers while you were foggy, we'd own everything by the time you noticed. Papers? He nodded. New deed. Power of attorney. Financial access. So you were going to drug me until I couldn't fight back. She said it'd just be for a few days. And you agreed. He looked up. You're not a saint, Dad. You kept me out of the business for years. You never trusted me with anything. You wanted to die with it all still under your name. I leaned back. So you were entitled to steal it? He shrugged. It was already mine. I was just speeding things up. I looked at him like I was seeing him for the first time. And maybe I was. Because this wasn't the boy I raised. This wasn't even a man. This was a hollow vessel of excuses and jealousy dressed in my blood. Thank you, I said. For what? For finally saying it out loud. I tapped my chest pocket. He froze. You recorded me? I smiled coldly. I trusted you once. That cost me enough. He lunged forward, but I didn't move. He stopped himself halfway, breathing hard, fists clenched. But he didn't touch me, because now he knew, the moment he did, everything would hit the fan. Police, press, prison. You bastard, he spat. No, son, I said. You are. That night, I sent the recording to Agent Price. Attached to it were the titles of every account Ethan had tried to breach, and the original forged deed. No commentary, just facts. Evidence, like bricks, stacked into a wall no lawyer could climb. Then I poured myself another scotch. And I waited, because I knew what was coming. It wasn't forgiveness. And it wasn't closure. It was consequence. And it was long overdue. They came for him on a Wednesday. 2 black SUVs. Plainclothes agents. No sirens. No shouting. Just quiet purpose, the kind of silence that means someone's already doomed. I watched from my porch as they pulled Ethan out of his car in front of Granger's grill number 3. He didn't fight, didn't yell. He just looked around like he couldn't believe the world was still spinning without him at the center. And then his eyes found mine. Across the street. Across everything we used to be. He didn't say a word. Neither did I. What was left to say? He'd already confessed to me, to the recorder, to the world in his own voice. The headlines broke that afternoon. South Carolina business heir arrested in elder abuse, forgery, and financial fraud investigation. His mugshot spread like oil and water. Blank eyes. What hair? No tie. The empire he tried to steal now burned in front of him, and he didn't even have a bucket. Savannah issued a statement through a lawyer 2 days later. Claimed she was manipulated, uninformed, and emotionally coerced. Standard script. Didn't matter. The footage from my kitchen, the sugar jar, the bottle, was irrefutable. Prosecutors filed charges. She skipped bail. Ran, probably back to Tampa. They'll catch her eventually. Or maybe they won't. I'm not chasing ghosts. I already buried the ones that mattered. The restaurant chain survived. Barely. But the brand? The name? It was poisoned. Not by me. By them. So I made a decision. Sold it all. Every property. Every trademark. Every last branded plate and coaster. Some of it went for pennies. Some of it went for pride. But all of it went away. Clean cut. Clean conscience. With the proceeds, I did something Ethan never would have understood. I opened one place. Just one. Small. Brick walls. Wooden beams. 35 seats. No name on the door. Locals just call it the Last Supper. They come in for the ribs mostly. And the cornbread. But every now and then, someone notices the framed photo near the kitchen. It's old. Black and white. A man in his 60s, sleeves rolled up, apron dusted with flour, standing in front of a young boy holding a spatula. There's a note scrawled across the bottom. Faded, but still legible. Build something no one can steal. My father wrote that. The man Ethan never bothered to ask about. Sometimes at closing time, I sit at table 7, near the window, pour myself a small glass of rye. Think about the names I used to carry: husband, father, mentor. Some were taken. Some were broken. But the one I kept? The one no one could poison? Man who finished the story. And when people ask me what I do now, I tell them I serve one last meal. Every night. And I make sure no one walks out of here still hungry. He poisoned my coffee, so I poisoned his future.